I'm May, and this is May's Crochets. I'm back today to share my fourth tie-dye turtle that I made. I'm a beginner crocheter sharing my learning to crochet journey. And a little while ago, I decided that I wanted to find the perfect amigurumi turtle pattern to crochet. I had also bought a bunch of these tie-dye yarns that I thought would be perfect for turtle shells. So I embarked on a little quest to make a bunch of different turtle patterns with these different tie-dye yarns and kind of see what I liked, what I don't like. I'm trying to come up with the perfect turtle pattern. So I'm here today to share number 4. And I have videos about my previous 3 tie-dye turtles that I've made on my channel. So I will link my playlist for that here. But let me show you number 4. So let's start by just looking at the yarn. So these are tie-dye yarns from Premier. It's Premier Basics Chenille tie-dye yarns. These are gorgeous. I'm obsessed with them. I've bought a whole bunch of them and I've been slowly working my way through making turtles with them. This color is called Cosmic Camo, which is a fun name. You can see there's some green and then sort of tans and whites and browns. I have to say, like, maybe not my favorite set of colors. I'm not typically a kind of brown, tan, neutrals-y type of person. I like kind of bright, rainbowy colors and things like that. But this one is just, I mean, it's just so perfect for a turtle, right? This is like meant to be, I feel like, a turtle shell. So a lot of my other tie-dye turtles that I've made up until now, I've had a lot of kind of interesting thoughts around trying to match what color yarn I wanted to make for the body when I'm using the tie-dye yarn for the shell. And so for this one, I had no problems choosing. This one was very, very easy. I went with this sort of, it's this green, and I think the color is actually called emerald green that I went with. It's just, I personally love emerald green. And that was just such a clear answer for this compared to, I mean, I'm sure I could have also done brown or tan or something, but I mean, I love green. So this is the yarn. I had to ball it up at the end because I've actually used this yarn for a couple of other projects so far, but here is the wrapper. So it's, again, Premier Basic Chenille Brights, and the color is emerald. So they go together nicely, huh? Okay, are you ready to see the turtle? Here he is. Ready? Woo! Oh my gosh, how do I show this? Okay, here he is. So this is, the pattern is from CJ Design, and this one is definitely a sea turtle. I think he's called Fred the Sea Turtle, and it's definitely more of a sea turtle than some of the other turtles that I've made. You can see these kind of nice big, kind of tail, or what are they called? Legs? Flippers? Tail, not tail, no. There is a little tail, you want to see? We'll talk about that in a second. I guess legs, flippers, something. They're nice and large. You can kind of swim. Boop, 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 boop. And here, take a look at the shell. It's so fun to see how these tie-dye yarns come out when you actually crochet with them. So let's talk a little bit about the pattern. I can kind of walk through some of it. I will link the pattern. Again, it's from CJ Design in the description box below. There's actually a written version as well as a video tutorial, which I love. I love watching these video tutorials and watching other people actually crochet and seeing some of sort of the details a lot of times of how they're doing things. I found that to be really interesting. So, and this one was really, really well done. So with this one is no sew, which I love. I've made a couple others now that are no sew or low sew, and I have to say I'm loving it compared to having to sew on all the little pieces. This one was fully no sew, super fun to just kind of crochet around and be able to attach everything all at the end. So you start by making the head. And it's interesting, actually. She has you basically make the head like regular, and then instead of actually attaching it together at the end, like crocheting through the ends, because you do that when you're actually or crocheting, I guess, on the head to the rest of the body. In preparation for that, when you finish crocheting the head, she has you just put stitch markers through each set of, I guess, stitches, top to bottom, so that you're kind of attaching the 4 sets of stitches so that they're ready when you actually go to attach the head on. You know exactly how to go through them. It seems like you don't have to do that. You could just like close it then and go through the right stitches then, but it's nice that you're kind of preparing for that right when you finish the head. I thought that was kind of a nice little touch that I hadn't seen before, that you're actually like taking the time to kind of take your stitch markers, actually prepare for what it kind of, which stitches it goes through, I guess, and then it makes it that much easier when you actually go back and attach it. So that was kind of cool. So you do the head, and then you do the flippers, the feet, the legs. Why do I keep saying feet? Turtle feet, I guess they are. I don't know. Turtle legs. They're all circles relatively large circles, as you can see, that you then close into sort of semicircles, I guess. You flip them in half. So I did actually one other tie-dye turtle, number 3, that was quite similar to this, and these are, I think, even bigger. I think of these as little dumplings. It's like, right? It's like, I mean, right, I think you make a dumpling actually in quite a similar way. You have a circle, and then you fold it over, and you sort of pinch the ends. You're actually crocheting each of the ends together. And so you come out with this look. This chenille yarn kind of hides some of the details a little bit, but you can see these sort of rounds, these nice little, it's almost like a rainbow of stitches. So that's kind of cool. So you make all 4 legs, and then you go ahead and start the shell, which of course is my favorite part because I love the tie-dye yarn. And you work your way around. And then this one was really, it's always the most interesting part, right? When you get to sort of how do you attach the shell to the body and how do you attach all these pieces on. So she had you actually, you're kind of going around and around like normal. And then when you get to this last round of the shell, she actually has you turn your work and go back the other way through the back loops only. So you're sort of facing the inside instead of the outside, if that makes sense. And I think it's the equivalent of if you kind of kept going forward and did front loops only, I think. But that was kind of interesting just to like, actually, I've never done that before where you just like literally turn it and go back the other way. I thought that was really interesting. You do that. And then you actually, when you finish the round, you fully fasten off and close it. And so all the other turtles, I've had like a color change, which you then have to deal with later, where you can see like the little jog of the color change. But this one, because you actually fully fasten off, it's really, really smooth all the way around. So that's kind of nice. So you do that, you close the shell, and then you switch back to the body color, and you do, I guess it's called a slip stitch join to attach. So that, again, it ends up with no, like you can't see the color change because of that, which is nice. And then you go back on so you had done the back loops only, and then you go back into sort of the loops that you had left exposed on the inside of the shell to start attaching the body. And so it's always the most interesting round is the one where you're attaching all the pieces. So you can start basically anywhere because at that point the shell is closed and it's fully like symmetrical. And then you crochet a little bit into those like leftover, I guess, back loops. And then you start by attaching the head. And so you have already left over from before those crocheted, not crocheted closed, but held closed with the stitch markers parts of the head. And so it's really easy then to go through the stitches correctly and attach the head on there. And then so you do that, it's like 4 stitches that, you do a couple single crochets, and then you attach the first leg. Each of these legs are attached with 3 stitches. And I, for some reason, had a little bit of trouble attaching the legs. So these little dumplings, there's like a right direction and a wrong direction. And so she said that you want the sort of the more round part facing forward. So that's that part and not that part. And you also, I think you want sort of the part with the stitches facing up top. Again, the chenille yarn really kind of hides it a little bit, but I had a lot of trouble orienting myself to get the right like side of the leg attached to the body and like crocheting through and like which side do you go through. So, and you have to do it 4 times. So I struggled a little bit with that, versus like when the legs are symmetrical, I guess it's just like a little bit easier. But it does have this nice look then with this sort of the rounded flippers, swimming. So that was an interesting challenge. So you attach those 3 stitches there, you do some more single crochet through those exposed loops, go back and attach another leg, and then you make this little teeny tiny tail. So the tail is really just, it's like a chain 3, and then you stitch into 2 going backwards, and it's just a slip stitch. It's just such a small little thing, but it does come out like this little cute little tail. And then keep going and attach the next leg. And again, you have to sort of reorient yourself because now you're facing the other direction. So that was interesting. And then some more single crochet, attach the last leg, and then you finish that round, and then a few more rounds to close out the body. And stuff it, and you're done. So yeah, Fred the Sea Turtle. I had a great time making this pattern. I'm not sure how much I love the look of the sea turtle with the big legs. The shell, actually, when I first was making it, I felt like the shell was like pretty small, and I ended up stuffing it really a lot because I kind of wanted the shell to have larger proportions as compared to the legs, which are gigantic. And then they're very floppy, but this is sort of the look of a sea turtle, and he's really cute. I just think that maybe for me, the proportions of the sort of more sea turtle are not exactly what I'm looking for in my perfect pattern. But I want to show a couple of the other turtles that I made, so that we can compare a couple of small things. First off, not a tie-dye turtle. My very first turtle that I made was a wooble. I have a video about Emilio the turtle from the woobles, but here he is. This one is what really got me started with these turtles. I just thought this one was so hilarious that the head is so gigantic and the body is so teeny tiny. But in the end, sort of the colors of this one, the green and then the brown shell is like the most similar here. It's the most sort of realistic, this one, compared to some of my other tie-dye turtles. And for the legs, actually, you only just do that same thing that you do for this tail is very similar to what you do for the tail here as well as for the legs. So they're just these teeny tiny little legs, where you're just doing a little bit of chaining and crocheting into it and then attaching it. So you end up with these little guys. So that is Emilio the turtle from the woobles. And then let me just quickly show, this was tie-dye turtle number 1. This one involved sewing. It was not no sew, and the legs are a lot smaller, symmetrical, so a lot more straightforward, although the shell was quite tall. Number 2, which might be my favorite still. We'll see when I finish this entire project. I just love these colors. Partially, it has a pretty big head. And this one had the legs and the tail were no sew, but the head you did have to sew on. But these are also, again, smaller legs and symmetrical. So that was maybe a little bit easier. I love these colors and the sort of the ridge, the ridge there. And then number 3, this is probably the most similar to sort of sea turtle-ish, was just the last one that I made. And this one actually does not have a tail. You can see the color change here, where it's like maybe not super great that you can see it. There's probably a cleaner way to do it, but the legs are similar, these little dumplings, but a little bit smaller. And interestingly, this pattern, she actually specified that the rounded parts should face backwards, as opposed to this one, she said for them to face forwards. And so I thought that was so interesting. Like, which is it? What do actual real life sea turtles look like? So I looked up pictures. I'll put one here. And I think it's probably right, this sort of rounded part more facing forward. And I'm sure there's different like kinds of sea turtles, but in a lot of the pictures, it's like the 2 front legs or flippers have these big sort of rounded arms, legs, and then the back ones are like smaller and a little bit different. So far, I've only ever had turtles where all 4 legs you make the same way. I wonder if there's any out there where the front legs are different than the back legs. But I just thought that was so interesting, the sort of which direction it should face. And this one, just the proportions, it's all a little bit smaller. The shell and the legs and the head, actually all the proportions are a little more sort of even, versus this one, the legs are a lot bigger. Another just random interesting thing was she actually has you use 2 separate crochet hook sizes, which I've never seen before in a pattern. So far, I've only ever done the same hook size all the way through. It was only 1 millimeter of difference, but she had you use I think it was one size for the head and shell and a different size for the legs and then the body when you're sort of attached. So I guess it's just maybe the sort of the bottom of it. And I'm not 100% sure why. Like, I think you could use the same size all the way through. Maybe it's something about the proportions. But I thought that was kind of interesting because I haven't really seen that before. But yeah, overall, this was a fun one to make. Again, maybe not my super favorite colors of all of them, just because the browns and the tans and stuff, but I love the green. And I do think this one's sort of like the most realistic so far. And I also think that somehow that works well for a sea turtle. Like, something about that just makes sense to kind of use the more like realistic colors, for the sea turtle versus some of these other kind of bright colors, rainbow, like obviously not real, but super fun. So tie-dye turtle number 4. The pattern, again, I will link below. It was very well done. The tutorial was really perfect. It was not too long with too much detail, but she told you just enough. And there was like even just like this one random small detail, the round after you do the tail, where you're crocheting and you have to do a decrease like right below it. And I ran into it and was like, oh, how exactly do I do this? And she has like, she goes over it in the video, like in perfect detail, all the little things that you might sort of get stuck on. So very well done. Very much recommend it. So take a look at that. I think, I don't know if this will be the last sort of sea turtle that I make. My next one will probably be less of a sea turtle. I'm looking, I think, for my perfect turtle to be probably for the legs to be a little bit smaller, but I do still have a few more tie-dye yarns to make with more fun colors. So definitely stay tuned for future videos where I share my remaining tie-dye turtles with you. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for keeping me company, and I'll see you next time. Bye.